Hello and welcome to the DGCAD Consulting training on Revit Building 8 in the lessons we're calling A to Z, Part 1. There's 22 video lessons to this A to Z Part 1, and this particular lesson is our introduction and interface. So I've just got a Word document in here, and I'm just going to scroll down, and this is really what I've done here is I've got Lesson 1, which is what we're going to do now, introduction and the interface. And then as I scroll down here, you'll see that I've got other topics coming up with other videos, basic floor plans, kind of an overview of plans, walls, doors, and windows. Then we'll talk about reference planes and elevations, datum points specifically. We'll talk about grids and grid columns. Some basic editing tools is our lesson 5. Then into lesson 6, 7, and 8, we've got visibility, creating elevations and sections, a little more detail outside of our general overview, which we'll do now. Different components and family members, family types, walls, specifically on walls, and some compound walls and how walls behave, specifics to floors, and then ceilings as well, roof objects, stairs is our lesson 13, curtain walls, curtain wall systems, sheets, and text annotation, printing. We've got dimensioning as lesson 18, tags and scheduling 19 and 20. Then we've got detailing and callouts and how that works in detail. And then we'll talk about legends in the final lesson. So not really any particular order of events. This is about as logical as we can do. We will be introducing other topics within each other simply because we will be introducing, for instance, say grids and then early, and then we'll go back and specifically on lesson 4 just focus on that particular object. So we will be introducing different object types at different times. So just to go over to my Revit here, we'll start out with our introduction. Revit means, the term Revit is revise instantly, and it is a parametric 3D program that uses smart objects. The objects communicate and anchor with each other and basically give us the graphics to our design intent and what we're designing. It is a design program that also creates all of your documentation and your working drawings and print out hard copy sheets as you please, or you can print to a PDF or however you want. So it's a full design program, Revit and Revit Building, and you create the model and then the documentation basically is taken from that model however you plan to extract that information. So parametric technology, smart 3D objects. You can link files together, and I will be using the other Autodesk CAD software names once in a while here, such as AutoCAD or ADT Architectural Desktop. So when I sometimes I'll use the term, for instance, XREF. In Revit we don't XREF. We can link files and we can use work sets to control files that are linked to one another. We do have an interface to a DWG, so we can export our file to an AutoCAD, a DWG file, and it will put everything on the right layer. And there's also layer mapping that we can do that. So we can tie into Architectural Desktop and ADT with Revit, and I'll be pointing out some of the differences because I realize that quite often people are coming from AutoCAD and Architectural Desktop and have that thinking in mind. So I will be referencing back to DWG and ADT drawings here and there throughout the program here in the training. It is a project-based single file in Revit. So we'll be firing up our Revit in a second. It is one big file, and you can use work sets if you have multi-user people on the project. We always have a central file, and then we use our Windows login to check out different work sets from that central file and work on them, and then we save those files, relinquish them back to the central file at the end of the day or part way through the day. We save to central. Multi-user environment, different from AutoCAD. Templates are very important in Revit. Whenever you have a template, you can start a drawing and have a standard residential or commercial or institution or multi-dwelling template file that you start off with in Revit, so that a lot of the stuff has already been set up in there. We know that from using templates in other software programs. So project-based single file. We have associated views that all update instantly. So I'm just going to switch over here to my Revit, and inside of Revit a lot of the stuff is not available until you go into a file. So I'm going to go File and I'm going to click on Open. And Revit's really nice because when you go into File Open, it gives you some really good shortcuts inside of here. So you can use the same files as myself here in the training. I'm just going to stick to the Revit training files, which is right over here, quite convenient and metric. And I'm just going to pull open a file, and of course last view, so it'll open it with the last view, or you can change that to be a different view if you don't want to open it with that particular view. As you add and open different views, right now the only window open is this particular view, which is this 3D view. But I'm going to go inside of here. Oh, and I can see I've got some, I want to delete those were from previous lesson, so I'm just going to get rid of those views. Don't pay attention. And now if I go to, say, the first floor plan, I double click on that. Now that window opens. If I go window now, I'll be able to see, well, there's my 3D view and there's my floor plan view. Or I can just simply click on here, or I can click back to here and we'll flip-flop. If I go window tile, what it'll do is it'll tile those two windows apart. And if we have more screen space, of course, we can do that. And as we click objects and place objects in here, and you can see there's a wall missing on this side, which is over here. If I click on this particular wall, you'll see it highlight here and you'll see it highlight here. If I hit delete, I actually delete that wall and it gets deleted from both places. If I go in here and I click on that door that's right there, okay, it highlights, or that window, and I'm going to hit delete. It's going to delete the object from both places. I'm going to use my wheel button here. I'm going to wheel in and out, okay, back into here. Okay, I can click on this particular door. You'll see it highlight over there. I can move it if I want. I don't have to delete it. In this case, I will, just to demonstrate, and it'll go from there. And then we've got different objects, and so I'm just really talking about the windows here and the fact that you do have different windows, and we have some shortcut keys. SD will give me a shaded view, and HL will switch that back. Similarly here, HL will give me just a hidden line view. SD gives me my shaded view. So we've got our different views inside of here, and they update accordingly. Let's go back into here and check our notes. So when I'm going to start a new file, and I'm going to show you where you can get a template, and we'll just see where that is inside. So if I go up here and I go File and I say New, it's going to say, what do you want, a new family, which is kind of like a bit like a block, but it's more universal because it will sit on the server or on your hard drive and it gets pulled into your drawings. I can create a new title block specifically, which is its own little kind of environment. An annotation symbol, if you want to create your own symbols and annotation objects, you say File, New here, and then New Project. When I pick New Project, I can then go inside of here, and if I scroll to the end, I can see it's using an RTE, a template file, and it's just using this particular template file. I can go browse and I can pick a project there. Or if I say new, I can actually create a project template right in here. So by saying I'm going to create a new template based on this template, or right now I'm going back to saying no, I'm actually creating a project file, which is not an RTE, it's an RVT file, Revit extension. So new project, inside of here I hit OK. It would use that template file, and then I would start off with a brand new file, and it would load it up based on that. And there's really nothing in there except for that it's got some pre-created elevations that are sitting inside of here, and if you draw in here, it'll automatically get created. If I go to my first level and I go in and I draw a wall on there, hit escape, and I go back to my south elevation, well, there's my wall that I just drew on level 1, and that's the height of it. And of course I can take that object and you can grip them and do all kinds of stuff, and it will update in all of the views. If I look at a north or an east view, I'll see there's the same wall. I can click it and drag it up, go back to my south view, and of course that's changed, and we can go in and we can use our align tool and say align using that, and then we can lock it. Okay, then we're done. Now all we have to do, starting to get smart, is we can grab that level and move it up, and of course that's going to move that wall up and down, and also any other walls that are drawn on that level too. Over here, for instance, you can see this is kind of grayed out. If I draw another wall, I'm going to draw a wall diagonally across here. I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to go to my south view, and there's that wall over there. Same type of thing. It's constrained to that. So that's a datum point. We'll talk about that a little bit more. We can go in and we can easily create new levels inside of here very quickly. It'll add that component on and go back again, do my align command and align that, lock it to there, and we can start to see some control over our drawings. So template files will have the base information and views set up for us, and if we were in a multi-user environment, we would go file and we'd go down here to work sets, and we could say, okay, well, we're going to make some work sets. It's going to automatically create the level and grid work sets, which are shared work sets. Generally, they're always shared because, of course, they're your levels and your grids, and then everything else gets moved to work set 1. And we're not going to talk about work sets here, but this is where you go in and then you would create a work sets on a central file after you've done a fair bit of work on it, and then you break the model up into work sets, and then individuals, as they log into Windows, can check out the work sets. And there's also a work sets toolbar that we can click on right in here, and then that work sets toolbar comes on and we can see information over there. So, and we can take that off for the time being. So right clicking on any toolbar shows you the other toolbars too, by the way. So if one of your toolbars goes missing inside of here, your tools, and you wonder where it is, you can right click and you can go back and you can grab that back. And this is our views one, and these can be moved around, but they can't be pulled off. They're basically locked down to your screen. So that's our multi-user. Views update instantly. We saw that with when we delete, move things, all the views are constantly revising instantly. Each view opens in its own window and we can tile it. We saw that. Callouts and details have smart tags. So the beauty of it is, if I go down into here, and I'm going to actually close this now. If I do close here, all I'm doing is closing that one view of that project. I still have this other view, and I would have to go close again, and now I'm in my east view. So if you want to actually close the project, you go File, Close, and it'll close. I'm not going to save anything. It'll close all the views for that because they all end up being windows inside of here. So closing this only closes that one window. File, Close closes the whole project and all the windows associated to it. If I go to my ground floor plan here, I can go in and I can put in, for instance, a section. I'm going to do a longitudinal section from here to here, and then it shows me the scope of where the section is going to be, and I can move using our grips back and forth. If I double click on that section, the section will go to that cross section for us. Beautiful. Right there we type SD and it'll give us a bit of a shaded view. Now I can go down inside of here talking about connectivity, is I can go in here and I'm going to right click and I'm going to say new sheet, and then I'm going to pick a sheet style. If I want to load one, I can go load a title block, and this is an RFA file, and if I don't see one and I want to make one, that's when I would have to go back and go File, a new title block, and then when I go into here and say View New Sheet, okay, or I right click on here and say New Sheet, then I can go load and go grab that title block file. In this case, I'm going to use this default A1 sheet size. It's going to create a sheet. Now I can go down, and that section that I created is actually here because I was the second one. I'm going to drag that into my drawing, and as I place that on there, it's going to put it in there. Now it's way too big, and that's because the scale is set to be too big for that particular view. So I'm actually going to click on this view. I'm going to right click and say activate the view, and inside of that view I'm going to set its scale factor, okay, over here. And that wasn't showing right, so I had to stretch this back and forth. There's my scale at 1 to 20. Well, that's way too much for, I only need this at 1 to 50. So I'm going to change it to be 1 to 50, and it's going to make itself smaller. Now I'm going to right click and say deactivate the view, and now I can go and take that and I can place that over there, and I can also take this grip and I can move that over there. I'm going to zoom in a little closer, and now if I click on this particular object, there's two different ways of moving this around on the sheet. Okay, well, you grab it and you just move it around here, and to control the size and location of this, you actually click on this itself and move it. So that moves independently, the little, but note that right now it says it's section 1. Well, I'm going to take what was my section, the first one on there, and then I'm going to actually zoom out here, and I'm going to take and put maybe an east elevation onto this drawing. I'm going to drag that over, and I'm going to place that east elevation right there, okay, and it's going to have a number 2 on it. Okay, now if I go back to my first floor plan where I took that section and I zoom in on this, okay, you'll see that it says it's section 1 on drawing A102. It's smart enough to know that over here on drawing A102 it is actually the second, or the first one, A102. Going back here just to verify that, 1 A102. Now if I go actually and change that sheet size over here, or sheet name, I can rename this, okay, and I'm going to rename this to be A106. Okay, note that the number here is changing, okay, which is wonderful, and it's going to update back, of course, on the sheet. And if I go to the sheet and I actually zoom in on the title block, okay, this is all good stuff about Revit. Of course, A106 is going in there, so I can click on this, and if I actually just type in there, type in a number, it's going to change that field right there. It's going to further down here reference, it's going to change that as well. Okay, and there's an elevation. You can see same type of thing. Double click on this elevation and I'll go to that. If you double click the tip, that is, you'll go to that exterior elevation, and that then in turn would be dragged, and it looks like it's on this drawing. Sorry, on this drawing. Oh, I'm sorry, my sheets. A107. Okay, and there's that one that has the wrong scale. I'm going to hit delete just to get rid of that. Okay, there's that elevation there. Okay, which is number 2. So if I go to my main floor plan, 2 on A107, okay, then I go to here, and of course there it is. Detail 2, A107. So all I want to do is talk about, we'll talk more about sections and elevations. Connectivity of the sections from the plan, where the view is actually viewable over here, and then when that gets dragged onto the sheet. So reference from the plan to the actual view of the elevation or the section, and then dragged onto a sheet, and they all update and talk to each other that way. Multi-user stuff we talked about. Callouts and details have smart tags. Schedules we can quickly export very easily. So if we're back inside of here and we go and we say view new schedule, and I want to create a window schedule, so I'll say a schedule and I want a window schedule, walls, windows, and hit OK, and I can say okay, I want the description, the count, the comments, the mark, the model, the level, the height, the width, the sill height, and all that stuff, and hit OK. It's going to create that schedule for me. Oh, there's only 2 windows in this particular drawing, not a very good example. And from there I can take that, of course, that schedule, which is now showing up over here, or I have a door schedule which is also created, and I can drag that onto a sheet. So if I go to this drawing, I can say okay, well, put that door schedule onto here, and then it'll place it. Okay, now maybe it's has to be stretched. Okay, so we can do that, where we can take this, and if we stretch this grip out, and then I'm going to take it and move it back down in separate parts. So in this case we can use a grip to stretch our schedules, and then we can take the schedule, we can go file, and we can export that to an ODBC database. So we can export that to an MDB access database file, and then from there we can do whatever we want with it and do some costing and stuff like that. So schedules, parametric, all update according to whatever you happen to click. Now again, on here I can't edit this right here. I've got to actually either activate the view, or I actually have to go to that actual section view over here. You have to keep track of whether you're on a sheet or you're in the view over here. So door schedules can be exported simply by creating the schedule, view, new schedule, and then exporting it. So we've talked a little bit about that. Host objects are objects such as walls, floors, roofs, stairs, ramps, and ceilings. And these objects host components, which are furniture and windows and doors and railings and equipment, and these are all family components, and they're all associated to the host objects, and then these host objects are then tied into the datum points, which are your levels and your grid lines and your reference planes. So you control your objects by using datum base objects here, and then moving these objects around and locking them and putting constraints on these objects. Will then control these objects, and then these objects are hosting these objects. So that these three very important in that components go into host objects get tied to datum points, datum base elevations or reference planes, and columns or grids all give you a central control. So there's that kind of wrapped up. We've got annotation objects we're not going to do. We'll do more on later. And that is just things like text and dimensions and symbols. And they're drawing specific or view specific. So if I want to put some text on here, I can just go up in here and I can put some text on here, and of course your text is going to read your scale factor. We have different text commands, we'll come back to it, but as we place text, it's only specific to this view. It's not going to show up when we go into our 3D view over here and we look at this. There's not going to be some text floating in the middle of nowhere. Similarly, like if we're on this first floor and we put some text in here, it's not going to show up over here. Okay, even if we say underlay the first floor behind the second floor, it will not bring the annotation with it. You can only drag one view to a sheet, or a view to a sheet once. If this view of the first floor plan is placed on sheet A108, for instance, and I'll just make some room here by clicking on this and deleting that view. It only deletes it from here. It doesn't delete it from the actual model. I'm going to take my first floor plan. I'm going to drag that in. I'm going to actually go to my first floor plan, and first thing I'm going to do is change my scale to be 1 to 100. I'm in a metric environment opening an imperial drawing, which is fine. So then I can go back down to my sheet here in my A108, and I can take that first floor plan and I can drag it onto here. Okay, now if I want to place that floor plan on my other sheet as well, it's not going to let me do that because it can only be dragged once. So if I drag this onto this sheet, it's going to say already placed on a drawing, you have to duplicate it. So I'm going to right click on first floor and I'm going to say either duplicate or duplicate with detailing. Double clicking on it opens it. Right click. If I duplicate it, it just duplicates the core model objects and doesn't take dimensions and text and annotation. If I duplicate with detailing, then it'll actually take all the details with it, and it's going to create a new copy of that first floor plan, and those are more or less linked. If I go to my first floor and I take this piece of furniture and I delete it and I go to here, okay, it's gone. Okay, again, if I take this sofa that's right inside of here and I delete it from this plan, I hit my delete button and it deletes it, it's also gone in there. And similarly, if I move a wall inside of here and I go back to this, it's going to do it in there. So then you can have different scale factors, and I can take this and I can rename this to be whatever I want, first floor furniture type thing, and then get rid of that. And then what I'm able to do now is I'm able to have, okay, first floor furniture plan, I'm going to say you are at 1 to 50, okay, and first floor you are at 1 to 100, and there, but yet still maintaining the fact that if you delete something from one, it deletes from the other. Click inside of here, whoops, and then delete. Okay, so duplicating floor plans, that way you can have different scale factors of the same drawing. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about duplicating, annotation, stuff like that. We'll talk now about the interface and how that works and close off with some shortcut keys. So interface, really we're talking about the components of Revit, so and which we haven't talked about. So we've got basically our pull down menu and our menu tools up inside of here. So inside of here we'll see a lot of stuff under settings like annotation and arrowheads and project units and line styles and line weights and material properties and fill patterns. So all of your settings where you set up your tools are inside of here. Window, we can see all these different windows that are open now. If I hit tile now, guess what? I'm going to get a whole bunch of different windows. I could easily go in here and just start kind of closing some off and then retile them if I want. Okay, no problem there. And then we can again see how things update. And of course I have my screen compacted to 800 by 600 here, so we're not getting a lot of view space. So we've got our menu up here. We've got our normal windows, open, close, cut, copy, and paste. We've got our undo buttons. We've got 3D button over here, depending on what window we're in. Let's just close a couple of these off in here, and then go inside of here. It wouldn't really matter. I'm going to go into, as soon as I hit this 3D button, it automatically bumps me into this 3D view over here. If I use my shift and my middle mouse button, oh, I grabbed something there. If I'm inside of here and I use my shift and middle mouse, I can wheel around, and then I can scroll in and out. So I have a wheel mouse. Again, shift, middle mouse lets you swivel when you're in the 3D view. You can also at any point just do a zoom command in over there, and you can pan around by using your middle mouse to scroll and pan around that way. So we have this toolbar inside of here. We've got, if we actually call that up, we can say spin, and now we can just use a normal mouse button and we can scroll, which is panning and stuff. But with the mouse operations, we're not using this quite as much. Then we've got reference setting your working plane. We'll talk about all these different wonderful tools. And so we've got our toolbar section over here, and this dynamically changes, and you'll see this area will change depending on, if I click the wall command, we'll see that this dynamically changes. This up here will stay pretty much consistent, and this is where we've got our offset and our trim and split and align. We use these all the time, many times a day. We've got some really nice object painters and Revit special painting tools over here when we want to draw line work. Our demolition object, which means the object will be demoed or removed or phased. And then over here we've got our design bar. In our design bar we can see we've got view tools and modeling tools and drafting tools. If I right click on here, I can say show me my site tools, and now I'll be able to see the site tools. Okay, if I right click on here, you can see there's more. There's a rendering one, right click again, structural, right click again, construction. And the problem here, of course, is that sometimes your commands, you can't see all your commands, so you definitely generally get in and turn off the ones that area analysis, rendering, structural. So you want to thin these down to the ones that you're probably not using, or that rather that you are using, and then dynamically as you click on a floor, you'll see different options change inside of here. Oh, we're in sketch mode now. We'll talk about that. Notice it grays everything out. Very nice tool with Revit is when you go into sketch mode, which happens to be, in this case, roofs and floors both go into this sketch mode, and here it's asking me for a plane to draw, and I'm just going to cancel that out, quit that over. So as we're drawing, we've got our design bar, and this is our project browser over here. We can close this up, and this is basically all of the different views of our model. Sheets, families are kind of like blocks, okay? Columns, the different column families that we've got, we can load them in by going here and picking component, and then we can pick load, and that's how we load. Notice it goes smartly to the right folder inside of here, and we can go in and say I want a door family, and it'll show me all my different door families. Go back up one, annotation objects, okay? So we can go in and we can load different components, and those components will then show up in our families folder. Sheets we saw a little bit of. We can go new sheet, and we create our sheets, which is inevitably what we're publishing. We've got schedules, which get their own little folder inside of here. As you create your schedules, you drag them to your sheets, and then the most important one probably is the views, and inside of views we've got different types of views. As you create levels, it will go in and create a floor plan for you. You may or may not publish that to a sheet. It's up to you. But inside of here we can rename it, and the key is that as you're renaming all of this stuff between the drawings, they're all talking to each other. So wherever that name might show up in a drawing list, or however that field gets if you change it inside of here, or you rename that or delete it, if you delete it, all the objects will delete from it, and it'll most likely give you a warning. So floor plans are view types. Every time you make a floor plan, it makes a corresponding ceiling plan for you right in there. So you can go and you can click on that, and it creates, and depending on how you have your ceilings, you can see there's a wall missing, but it gets rid of all your doors and stuff that might be there, and it shows things that are dashed. So ceiling plans, 3D views. As I go into, say, my first floor plan, and I create a new 3D view by using the camera command, view, new, camera, and I say, okay, give me a view from here to here, it's going to create that view right inside of there. And you can see there it is there. I can go and I can rename this to call it, Southwest or something like that. Then I can take this and I can drag that by grabbing the edge. Okay, I can also go in here and I can I can click on that and I can edit it. I can actually edit it in this 3D view. So if you don't like it or you want to move something over, you can simply grab the object right there, and then I'm using my arrow key in this case. Oh, I'm not going to do it that way. I can move it, or I can change the style. I can say, okay, no, you are, this type of door, and it'll actually change that door right in there for me. You saw it flash. And then if I went to my first floor, chances are wherever that door is sitting, I'm not sure where that was or what floor it was on, would have updated. Okay, so floor plans, 3D views created with the camera. This is the main one with the brackets. We can't really delete that one. It's always there, and that's the one that we go to when we hit on here, and then it remembers where you left off. So if you shift around, you can do that, and we'll talk a little bit more about views and the cropping in the section box. If I right click on here and I go inside of here and I actually turn on the section box and hit OK, then I'm going to get this wonderful cropping box in 3D, and I can click on that and I can take the grips of that and I can slide that in, and it's actually going to do a little cross section of wherever it is that happens to be, and I can do it in 3 dimensions by bringing the top one down as well. So we can move that around and we can show our clients what's going on inside the building very easily this way. And of course this view can be saved, and you can drag this view to a sheet and it'll show up in one of your sheets. So 3D views, elevations. As you create elevations, we're going to go to the first floor, and I'm going to add in another elevation. I'm just going to say view, new elevation, and then I'm going to drag a point, and it doesn't have to, and placed it there. I'm going to click on that elevation, and I can, if I click on, there's different marks. If I click on the outside, that's the elevation itself. I click on here, I can turn this around, or I can rotate this to be looking this way. Okay, I'm going to click out in white space. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to delete it. I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to say, okay, well that's where, that's the elevation that it's got. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to bring it over to there, and I'm going to take this and drag it out to there. Okay, so now that's a diagonal elevation. Again, clicking on here is different from clicking on here. Double click on there and it actually goes to that elevation, which is angled out, and now that elevation will show up in here in my elevational views. If I go to elevations, there it is, and I can rename that there as well. So East 1A, it just happened to put a name on there. Okay, so elevational views, and again coordination of all your section bubbles will work. As I do a section will show up. Right now I've got section 1 and 2. If I go back into here and I say, draw a new section through my first floor plan, again, any angle I want, there's my grips. We're getting used to that. Okay, it doesn't have a number right now because I haven't dragged that to a sheet. Once I double click on here and I actually go to that elevation, there it is, elevation or section 3. I can right click and I can rename it, and then if I take that, of course, and I drag that to a sheet, go down to my sheet 108, and I take section 3 and I drag it, and of course it's going to pick up the scale factor. Now when I go back to my first floor plan, I'm going to notice that this is going to have all my information on there. So sectional views, as they get created, they get in here in your project browser. Schedule, so this is really just managing all those object types and views as we do it in the project browser. We've got our sidebar with our tools. We've got shortcut commands. If I go in here, and you've seen me typing by going into a floor plan, for instance, and typing in SD for my shaded view, clicking in here, if I go view, you can see SD, there's little shortcut commands after each command, and we can also edit those. So VP will go into the view properties dialog, and F8 will bring up dynamically modify the view. So if I hit F8 right now, it brings up this button, the eyeball button over here. So shortcut commands. So I'm going to talk about that. Is that keyboard? There's a file called keyboard shortcuts .txt. right there, and it sits in this location under Program Files, Autodesk Revit Building Program. Under that folder there's a file here, and that has all your shortcut, like your equivalent to your ACAD PGP file. So a lot of typing, very quick, you don't have to hit enter, easy syntax. Okay, so when you go in and edit this file, you can add in your shortcut, and it'll show you how to edit that file. It's pretty straightforward. In Revit we've got different file types. We've got an RVT, which is your main Revit model file, your central file. We also have RFA, or family files, like doors and windows and furniture and equipment and trees and landscaping objects, anything you want. And RTE is a Revit template file. Okay, and families, we saw you can load families as components. We'll do more and more on that. And the settings menu pull down, I just wanted to note one more time, back inside of our Revit, inside of settings here, a lot of our stuff that we set up in the beginning are inside of here, and also in our view properties and visibility graphics inside of here. We can go in, this is about as close to Revit comes to layers in AutoCAD, in the sense of you can go in and you say show me the doors, or don't show me the doors, or show me certain parts of so this will turn off the visibility of those objects in the view that I'm in, that's current. Okay, so I'm in this particular view right now, and in this view I can say I don't want to see the doors. I would go back up, view, visibility graphics, turn them on and off. You can also go view and you can say apply view template, and inside of here you can have specific template set up that are view specific, and say okay, apply the site plan template, and all of a sudden site plan knows enough not to show interior partitions and furniture, but it will show contours and trees and shrubs. Likewise, a floor plan view will not show the landscaping. So in other words, everything exists in the model, and each view can then go in and say okay, what parts of that model do I want to see by going inside of here as well. Annotation objects, do I want to see the tags and stuff? So these two guys in here, very important in Revit, as close to AutoCAD layers as you can get, and you can turn on the visibility and graphics of those objects in each view, and then subsequent to that you can go into view and you can say save this as a view template, or apply a new view template, and it'll keep track of those specific viewing aspects to help you speed up and get up to speed. You don't have to reset that stuff all the time. And that's about all we want to talk to you about in this first introduction to Revit, and we'll be repeating a lot of this stuff as we go through in the later lessons.